Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Saturdays for Sustainability Learning, where we are connecting every week, every Saturday to understand sustainability in a holistic manner. So this can be understood as a mastermind group where we are connecting for peer-to-peer mentoring, peer-to-peer learning, understanding of different point of view from people from different background, and that's very important to understand the broader our understanding for the topics and getting input and advice from the other group members. So if you have any query or anything you want to discuss, so this is a free flowing discussion forum, non-judgmental discussion forum, so please feel free to share your inputs and advice as well. Okay. So you are investing most important valuable resource, that's 1 hour 60 minutes. So this is what you can expect from this 60 minutes. Learning something new every week as you join, networking, getting to know about people in sustainability domain, learning opportunities or career opportunities, what are new, and the thought leadership. Of course, sustainability, sustainable development, ESG, these are evolving fields, and the way we are understanding this, so shape, that will definitely be a thought leadership that will put all of us into that steering position. So that's something we want to gain. And two basic fundamental foundation, you can say. So these are data, information, knowledge, wisdom. This is called as DIKW pyramid. And with today's AI, with today's data, we have more data and more information than we can possibly consume. It's not possible humanly to consume all these reports and the data that we are getting generated. But what we lack is knowledge and wisdom. And that only comes from experience, that only comes from human interaction. And that's what we try to do in these sessions. And second is discussion and question and answer are the best way to learn. So please feel free to ask your doubts, your queries, and let this be a participative forum. And that's how everyone can benefit. And wherever you think that you can contribute something, please feel free to jump in and share your experience, your point of view. We would love to hear you. Okay. So with this two, maybe basic foundation, basic ideas to start with. So you already you have registered yourself, and that's how you have joined this session. So if not, please do so. But this is just one-time registration. You don't have to you don't have to worry about filling it again and again. Just one time is enough. If you don't, let's say if you are not receiving any calendar invite, so please just message me. I'll add it. Yeah, and yes, the recording will be shared in our WhatsApp group, so that we will share definitely. Okay. All right. So with this basic introduction, so just one request for all of you, please ask your questions, participate, and that's what is a requirement for all the members. Okay. All right. So today we are connecting on 7th of February, and this is week 94 for us. And today we have a topic ISO 46001, which is about water efficiency management systems. And I'm very grateful for Muralidharan sir for agreeing to deliver this topic. And to tell about Murli sir is his senior sustainability expert, uh, even for social audits when it came first to India. So he was one of the leading experts into social aspect. He's advisor, mentor, trainer. So a lot of things can be spoken about him. So thank you so much, sir, for joining today as a guest speaker and
Thank
helping
you.
us to understand this topic. So over to
Yeah,
you.
yeah, right. So I need to share, I think, right?
Yes, yes.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Others also, you can confirm if you
yeah,
can.
please. Hope it's visible.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, good evening to all of you. And thanks for joining this session. And it's always a pleasure to be in the session assisting Mr. Dhananjay, who has been incessantly working in this area and also ensuring that the education reaches people. So it's a commendable effort, and I appreciate that. And as a part of it, I've been off and on giving some sessions, and this is one session which I thought is relevant today. Now, when we talk of the water efficiency program, a lot has been spoken, a lot of information is available, particularly on the water management or wastewater management, improving the efficiency, water-based footprint, and even nowadays they talk about water credits like carbon credits. So here we have a standard which has been published by ISO as ISO 46001, which incidentally, when I looked at it, not many organizations have given attention to as of now. Perhaps it got released in 2019 and the relevance was not felt that much because some of the aspects get addressed through the 14,001 or other frameworks which are available already. Now, but this standard, when we look at it, it in a way helps organizations who are in the path of ESG to look at our CDP or EcoVadis, other programs of the ESG reporting. One of the aspects is about the water efficiency, and this framework, ISO 46001, supplements the requirements, also helps approaching the water efficiency in a systematic manner, and also to see to it that it gives business benefits at the end of the day for any size or any type of organization, and also to see to it that how do we address the issue of water management in the respective organizations. Now here, what I wanted to talk initially before we dwell into the standard is that we have always been talking about water crisis when we look at it. In summer, of course, there is a crisis and everybody goes for tankers or any other sources of water, and somehow they manage it. And there are organizations which are fully dependent on water. Water particularly is a raw material for them, particularly like if we see beverage industries, dyeing industries, or food industries, where the dependency on water is very, very high. So when we look at it, they have been managing that, and water stress is a word which is commonly used. The second, rather water crisis. The second term is the water stress. We have the distribution of water is not uniform across, and it is available in plenty on the river banks or any other place where you have perennial rivers. And on the other side of the spectrum, we see areas like Rajasthan or Gujarat or other places where the water availability, or in other places too, they are water stressed areas. Now, these are some of the terms which are common, which we hear. And the latest one, which I would like to highlight, which has come up just last month, is the United Nations has released a report as water bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a term normally we use in financial area, telling that a company which had a lot of resources because of governance or any other issues, that because of lack of business or lack of forecasting or poor management, and it became insolvent, or in other words, unable to run. The liabilities are more than the assets, and then it is declared bankrupt. Now, one of the companies we can identify is that Anil Ambani's company, which became bankrupt. There are several other cases which are there just to highlight the topic of bankruptcy. United Nations this year, January 26th, has projected that the topic of water bankruptcy is likely in the near future, unless otherwise due care is not taken by everybody in the society, particularly by the organizations. So in this context, so I would urge all of you to go to Google and go through this report, an interesting report which talks about a dark future with regard to water management and proactively advising organizations and the society to address this issue of water. Now, when we look at it, the cities are growing and the water stress is always being felt. Of course, it gets addressed in a way that you are able to manage it for the period, and then the issue is forgotten when rains come. So this is a situation which requires focus, and that is where a standard like ISO 46001 comes handy for organizations to implement efficiency systems within the organization. One of the advantages of 46,000 being an ISO standard, all of us who are familiar to the ISO 9001 or any other standards, it has a high-level structure. And for those who are not familiar with the ISO series of standards, there are certain commonalities in all these ISO standards, which is called as the hierarchical or a high-level structure. High-level structure includes the requirement of policy to be there, the definition of responsibilities and authorities to be there, awareness requirements and training requirements is mandated, operational control procedure requirements are mandated, risk assessment is essential as a part of the management system framework. And
Hello,
also,
sir. Sorry to disturb. So just
yeah,
wanted to confirm. So we are seeing the first slide only. So
yeah, I have not moved it.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Just, yeah. Okay. So the issue here is that every framework which is there has a high-level structure, and this high-level structure enables ISO to come up with new standards. And as we see 14,000 or 27,001, 22,001 or any other standards, it will have the same structure and the elements, commonalities with 10 clauses. Of course, the specifics which are there required by each of the systems are inserted into that framework so that the standard is complete. Now, in 46,001, when we look at it, it has the same structure, and as I will show you soon. So water efficiency framework is, the focus is on the water efficiency, the framework for sustainable water management. As I indicated to you a little while ago, it integrates the 9001 and the 14,001 and supports continual improvement with enhances organizational water practices, assesses and account for water usage and identify plan to achieve savings. So this is the essence of this framework, and we have a lot of information on that as to how to go about this. And what becomes important in this context is the strategic leadership and the importance of water efficiency, which is required to be taken care of by organization for sustainability and compliance. When we look at the Indian legislations, we have two legislations. One is the Water Act, which talks about the management of water or the wastewater, which is there in the organization, starting from the source, the use, and the treatment of the water, which is indicated through the Water Act 1974. There is also another act, some of you will be familiar to, is the Water Cess Act. Those organizations which use very high level or consumption of water, they are required to pay a cess, which came about in 1977. And it's only based on the polluter pays principle, where somebody is using more resources and a tax will have to be paid, and that is what is the cess which is charged, which of course has not changed much, and it is likely to change in the near future, taking into consideration the challenges which are being faced. Now, why is this framework significant is that over 2 billion people lack access to safe drinking water. Global water scarcity affects agriculture, industry, and communities. Inefficient usage leads to economic repercussions. When we say economic repercussions, it is to the extent of companies buying water to the tune of maybe 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs a month in tankers. So it is a cost which is there for the company. And as I indicated to you, it becomes a raw material in some instances. So effective water management is crucial for resilience part of it. So how do we address this? It is the people who have to take the interest in this. That is, when I say people, it is not only the people working in the organization, but the leadership of the organization, which is to take interest. Processes which will have to be water efficient will have to be looked into, particularly if we look at the case of pharmaceutical industries where formulations are made. It could be a cough syrup or it could be some other the solutions which are there, and there water is an important ingredient. So the process changes when it is done and validated may enable the organization to save water and also become efficient. Of course, the product, when we look at the product part of it, the agricultural products which are there, when in the agricultural fields, if water is wasted or it is extensively used, that becomes a resource wastage. So efficient production, like typical example everybody quotes is Israel, the country which is very small, which has no rivers at all, but it is able to manage and produce so many fruits and so many vegetables within the area, and they are like the pioneers or masters of the water efficiency management. So what I meant to say is organization has to think and come up with products which are less water intensive in future. So you have the economic and environmental impacts, which all of us know. The environmental degradation because of the groundwater being used, when we see many places where the apartments are managed through bore wells in today's context. So many apartment complexes are coming, and we do not know if the rains fail, what is going to be the living conditions in those apartments. If we look at, for example, a city like Mumbai itself, it depends on 5 lakes which provide water to the city, and it has been providing it. And many a times we see water stress in seasons. So efficient use of water becomes very important. Of course, it is a business risk and it has benefits with it, and companies face significant consequences for non-compliance with water regulations if they don't manage it. And one of the typical cases which came about maybe 20 years ago, to my knowledge, is that in Haryana, companies were generating wastewater They did not have any treatment plant or anything. So conveniently, every management dig a bore well and then dumped the wastewater into that and closed the bore well. This was an easy way of pumping the wastewater, the dirty water, into a bore well and closing it, which nobody sees and it is not visible to any government authority. But over the period when everybody was doing such a practice, it became apparent that the water table got contaminated. So this was very surprising. And when they did the analysis, they could find out the bad behavior of organizations. And interestingly, the government came up with a rule that whoever adopts such a bad practice, they will be jailed. The chief executive can also be jailed. So this was a punishment which came about, a rule, and subsequently the awareness was brought in, and then the situation improved in the Haryana area. So typical example of what a blunder can cause to the society at large when the management is not satisfactory. So improvement is the water management is gives financial savings, sustainability, boosts organizations, reputation, etc. And when we look at frameworks like CDP or Carbon Development Project earlier, one of the requirement is to report about the water management. If we look at EcoVadis or Indian Sustainability Reporting Framework like BRSR, water efficiency, water management is indicated as an area which any company will have to focus and they will have to report it. And interestingly, for your information, one of the reports of a leading bank, they produced a BRSR report, which indicated that the water consumption was zero. So it was a bank with numerous branches, and they said that the water consumption is zero, disclosed as zero. This became a question, and the stakeholders started asking that you have so many branches, many people may be using water for drinking purposes or for the washrooms or for cleaning and other activities. How is it that it has been reported as zero? So this became an issue. For some time, people talked about it and then it got forgotten. But what I wanted to highlight at this point is that the inappropriate disclosure can result in a reputation risk for the organization. So it becomes very important to look into what is the consumption pattern and what is the efficiency method we use and how the utilization of water is there in organizations. So this framework, when we look at it, it has more or less the same requirement as other 9001 or 14001 standards. The applicabilities for all sizes of organizations and those organizations which produce various types of products. It can be a service organization like a software company, or it could be a manufacturing organization which is producing various chemicals or beverages or any machine shop or whatever it is applicable to all types of organizations and all sizes. And the advantage is that if an organization has any other ISO management system, it is easy to migrate and integrate the ISO 46000 within their scope of the management system. The continual improvement philosophy, which has been built into the standard, is to be achieved through establishing objectives and a water efficiency policy. As I indicated to you earlier, continual improvement is a part of the ISO framework, which clause number 10, if you see for those people who are familiar too. talks about the continual improvement process, and this highlights the requirement of steps the organization is required to take in the process of water efficiency. Risk-based thinking is one of the core features of this ISO standard. So it takes into consideration the risks with the availability, the risks during the usage, risk during the recovery process, and the innovation issues which will have to be taken by the company for improving the efficiency purposes. And it also takes into consideration risk to the community. So many a times when the water is drawn, particularly like the beverage industry, which draws water of millions of liters per day, and they are required to look at it with the community point of view. And this has been very common in India. Many of these companies like Pepsi or Coke, when they wanted to establish their factories at various locations, the local communities objected to that because they felt that the water, if it is drawn from the ground, they will be starved of water for agriculture or other purposes. So the companies had either to relocate themselves or close their factories because of protests by the community. So this is another risk which is there, and it is essential for the organization to address the voices of the stakeholders or the right holders, if we see. Some of the terms what get used in this standard are reduce, reuse, replace, reclaimed water, and significant water use. So these are some terms which are common, and I mean, we understand the significance of this term and the meaning of this term. And it is reduce, meaning that it can be reduced at the source or during the process or in the product itself. Reuse, meaning recycling of the water, and maybe reusing it through treatment or without treatment. Replace, meaning wherever it is possible to replace the existing water level, which will bring in efficiency, that may be helpful in some way. And replacing also means instead of having a groundwater, we use a treated seawater or anything like that. The other sources of water are included in this. Reclaimed water and the significant water use is through the treatment part of it. So these are some of those terms which have been put into the standard. And it is but natural that every organizations go through their practices, identify where the opportunities exist, so that either they can reduce or they can replace or they can use the reclaimed water, whatever be the process. If they follow, that should benefit the organization in improving the efficiencies. We have what the standard requires is that to establish a baseline water efficiency indicator. So it says, as of now, maybe in this year 2026, February, what is the level of water usage? First of all, let us establish a baseline and then look at the efficiency part. So it looks at all those practices, procedures, and processes available in the organization, and it requires documenting these requirements, maybe coming up with a water balance, which is highlighted in the standard, and also the measurements which are done at each stages of the process or the manufacturing of product or providing service, and then coming up with the ways and means to address the issue of water efficiency. And we have various types of water: gray water, black water, and these are all the sewage, whichever is generated is the black water, and gray water is the washings which come from the processes. So they have all got defined for better understanding as to how to go about the process. And it refers to the ISO 2451, which is used as a reference for water efficiency. But this standard is particularly for potability of water, and this can be used to understand what water efficiency is all about. Now, coming to the standard per se, these are all the terms or the clauses of the standard which are there, the internal and external factors. So, organizations understanding the context, which is important, wherein it is important for the organization to understand the main business, where it is in, what are the water related issues, the cost and impacts. So this provides an approach to address the efficiency part in the organization. Particularly in very large organizations, the organization which the department or the area which utilizes high level of water, this could be taken into consideration as a context of the organization, and the efficiency improvements could be done. Otherwise, the organization may take the entirety of the organization, look at the business they are in, and then look at those avenues for improvement. So, internal external factors become very important, and external factors becomes all the more critical when the water intensity is high, particularly because of the regulations, the stakeholder needs, and the community expectations. This is a factor which requires to be taken into consideration. So we need to identify who is affected, the communication of policy of information to those concerned, and also identify those interested parties who may be impacted by the use of water, so that they are informed in advance or they are informed periodically about the significance of impact, the crucial information, the necessity of expertise, etc., to see to it that there is a social license provided by the community for operating of the organization. So, next element is understanding the scope. All of us are familiar with the scope definition in ISO standards. So, similar to that, we are required to document the scope as a documented information for which the organization can get certified. With the definition of scope, it becomes important to set the goals for establishing clear, specific goals on water efficiency management system aligns with the water management efforts and the overall business objectives for the enhanced operational efficiency and accountability. So objectives become very critical in this standard, and the monitoring of objectives is all the more crucial. In all these things, what becomes important is that the top management's role. Nothing can be done at the lower level unless otherwise resources are provided. It could be financial resource, it could be technical resource, it could be operational resource, whatever be the requirement, they will have to be provided by the top management. And similar to other management systems, the top management role becomes very important for empowerment, motivation, recognition, training, long-term planning, and also efficiency planning activities. Now, leadership and commitment requires establishing accountability through the responsibility definitions, coming up with a water efficiency policy or a water policy, and with clear accountability and cultivating engagement. So here, one important element which has been added or a requirement which is highlighted is that encouraging the culture of water efficiency to promote engagement and employees become proactive in identifying improvements in practices. The requirement of management representative is highlighted here, may be current or a contracted competent individual. So it doesn't say that it has to be from within the organization. Organizations could have a management representative who is contracted, who is given the responsibilities and authorities to focus on the efficiency and also to see to it that the system is running within the organization. So, external or internal resources is permitted by the standard. So, aim of team to drive the efficiency is stressed. So, it cannot be a one-man army looking at the water efficiency part. It requires a coordinated effort and with cooperation. So, the aim of a team is highlighted in the standard. So, a cross-functional team could enable organization to come up with efficiency practices and also look at processes for continual improvement. So the idea behind is fostering a culture of efficiency within the organization resulting in continual improvement. So strategic planning for this becomes paramount. So identifying the risks, opportunities related to water use, measurable water efficiency objectives, compliance with legal requirements, which is always mandatory, and planning resource allocation, integrating water related risks into the organization's risk management. So how do we come up with OCPs or SOPs or guidelines or work instructions, whatever be the nature of the process, it has to get integrated with the risks attached to the organization and foster financial, technical, administrative, and innovation to control risks. So, this is the core of the water efficiency management system standard. An effective and efficient risk assessment enables the organization to have a path of progress to see what best can be done under the circumstances in which the organization operates. So, water efficiency management planning, a conceptual diagram is what is recommended so that we know where the source of water is, where all it is being used, how it is being used, and also what is the amount of water which gets disposed of or which goes as a wastewater, wherein efficiency could be brought out. So, legal and other requirements, we have international legislations, national, regional. There are some voluntary programs like CDP, COVADIS, and other programs, or GRI reporting, etc., wherein the organizations enroll themselves for sustainability reporting. So those requirements will have to be taken care of. There are also industry sector guidelines. For example, zero liquid discharge, particularly in the dyeing industries, it is mandated. Also in other industries like paper industries, beverage industries, there are industry sector guidelines which have come up, and also handling the sewerage and drainage regulations in practice as per the Water Act. So all these things require to be given attention to in coming up with efficiency targets which are SMART. As we know, SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, and time bound. So, water use review, as we looked at it earlier, a baseline will have to be set up wherein we are in a position to identify business activity indicators, water efficiency indicators, and baseline water efficiency indicators. So we need to come up with these indicators and then look at the next step of how do we go about the process of achieving efficiency. So business indicators, what are those? For our better understanding is measure of the business activities that take into consideration core business operations. Example, the area, the number of employees in hotel rooms, for example. So these are those things. For example, if we look at a software company, the number of employees becomes crucial. If there are 20,000 people operating in a complex like Infosys or Wipro or whatever the organization, obviously the water requirement will be different from another company which is having some 2,000 people. Like hotel rooms, if we look at it, if it's a huge five-star hotel, then maybe with 500 rooms and other types of very large infrastructure, so it becomes important to identify the business activity. So variation in the business activity indicators will influence the water use to determine the efficiency part of it. So this is one parameter which requires to be taken into consideration. The second is the efficiency indicators. It could be water use per unit of product, particularly, for example, the water intensity, as they say, if we want to produce 1 ton of steel, how much of water is being used? If we want to produce 1 ton of aluminum, how much water is being used? So the water intensity is taken into consideration, and suitable data to account for legal and other requirements such as weather, business cycle, and other conditions also will have to be taken into consideration. Because of erratic weather, then the efficiency indicator may change. Nowadays, we find that there is a heavy rain due to extreme weather events, and that also has an impact on the water efficiency part of it. The water is available in plenty, but the organization has no water for it to process. So such situations are coming up as we notice because of the climate change issues. And the baseline water efficiency indicator is important. It is mandated by the standard, is maintained constant, recorded for documented maintenance period, maybe for a year or 6 months, whatever it is, and adjustments are made in this business baseline indicator, which is to be reviewed by the organization. So we have three indicators: the business activity indicator, water efficiency indicator, and baseline water efficiency indicator, which will have to be documented, and accordingly actions required to be taken. Resource competency communication obviously becomes very important, particularly when we want to implement certain changes. Financial resources and the technical and technological resources become very, very important. So in addition to that, competency requirements are also essential, where it's a huge infrastructure and also the technology requirements demand the requirement of competency. In today's context, they use IoT, AI, or blockchain to do the water efficiency management. So it becomes important for organizations to have people trained and also to ensure competency to see to it that things can be taken care of. So foster awareness on water efficiency among employees and stakeholders becomes one important point for consideration by the organizations. And documented information, as we understand, any ISO system depends on manual procedures and processes. And what is required is to come up with the documented information to see to it that how the policies and the objectives can be translated into operational practices. So control of documented information is given emphasis similar to other management systems. So in this case, the extent of documentation will be dependent on the complexity of the organization and the areas where water is getting used. In some organizations, as I indicated to you, water may be a raw material, or it could be in other organizations, the wastewater requires to be handled carefully. So depending on the nature of the organization and the complexities of the organization, it is essential to come up with a decent documentation which will be helpful for organization to implement and improve the systems. The operational and planning control, the design aspects are also getting emphasis in the standard, because consideration of water efficiency in design modification, renovation with adequate documentation becomes important. There could be an existing design which is there, and as a part of the water efficiency project, a new design, a concept is introduced. But what has to be taken into consideration is that it could be an efficient design, but it could consume more energy, or it could consume more material for the fabrication purposes, or it could have the utilization of a lot of resources in coming up with the design. So the cost benefit part of it is also to be taken into consideration. And that is why, with adequate documentation, the stress is given in the standard. The procurement of water services and products and equipment becomes very important when new products are coming up, water efficiency projects are there. For example, in hotels, they have new types of showers which come, which has 70% air and 30% water, which gives a feeling of having a good bath. And thus, many hotels are install these gadgets to see to it that they are in a position to save water. If we look at the lawns maintained in the five-star hotels, if the height of the grass is to a certain level and it is cut periodically, then the consumption of water reduces by 5%. So they go to those minute levels in whichever areas where conservation is possible or efficiency improvement is possible, and accordingly address the efficiency components in the organization. Maintenance and inspection becomes very important, obviously, as we understand the leaks, the breaks, the damages which happen will have to be rectified. Otherwise, whatever is saved, it goes off due to any sort of happenings due to improper maintenance and inspection. So operational planning control becomes very important. And nowadays we have not only the manual way of monitoring, we have remote monitoring, computer control monitoring, and data collection could be done because of digitalization, which is there as a daily, weekly, and accordingly, they have also installed some AI programs to see to it that automatically the signals are given or inputs are given to change the pattern and to improve the efficiency part of it. One of the examples which I can give you is the recent example of which is the effort taken by one collector in the southern part of India in a small place called E Road, and it is available in the public domain as a report. And he took 10 villages where the water consumption was there. He used the AI techniques, the IoT and other the so-called digitalization process, And that has resulted in a significant reduction of water wastage and improved efficiency in those villages. So, a lot of such efforts are being taken at the community level and also at organizational level. So, typical examples of monitoring, if we see in industries, it could be process cooling towers, boilers, scrubbers, cooking area, and washrooms or toilets. If we look at hotels, it could be in the guest room, cooling tower, kitchen, laundry, and the laundry consumes a large amount of water in any hotel. So, swimming pool, hot water, and all other areas. Construction sites, obviously, the dependency is high. That is why there are certain rules and regulations which are coming up to say that the wastewater which is there, the municipal wastewater which is there, can it be treated and be provided to the construction industries for their use? Because it is not used for drinking purposes. So, if it meets certain quality, it could be used for uh, making concrete or washing or other things. So that is also being thought of, like in a state like Karnataka. This was mooted to see to it that how the wastewater could be utilized for construction sites. So certain legislations, local requirements, legislations are being planned. So when we come to the operational planning, optimization of manufacturing process gets focus. Reduction in pollutant load via segregation is also recommended. That the wastewater has high level of chemicals, and even if we are in a position to reduce it, particularly this is relevant in the case of the pigments and dyeing industries or paper industries, where the pollutant load is very high, which gets discharged to the rivers. So, reduction in pollutant also could be considered as an efficiency process. It could be recycling of process water or non-process water for cooling towers, low down, and discharges from scrubbers, which could be utilized. And use of alternate water is the seawater, which the desalination process, which if it is undertaken and then they can be used in the processes. And that is one of the alternatives which is available, and people are looking at it closely because of lack of availability of groundwater nowadays. In addition to that, simple changes like efficient fittings, equipment, apparatus, appliances, they could also be used. As I gave an example of the gadgets which are used in hotels. Optimization of cooling tower operations, climate control, smart irrigation installations. This is a common thing. What we call as the precision agriculture or smart agriculture is taking shape, and considerable amount of focus is given with the availability of big data, as they say. The climate controlled smart irrigation installations are becoming common. So these are all those efficiency routes which an organization can adopt to see to it that they are in a position to achieve benefits through this. Now, how does the technology enable the efficiency process? As we all understand, the sprinkler irrigation, drip irrigation, precision agriculture, as I talked about, the hydroponics, the use of water to grow vegetable. Like recently, yesterday only, there was some news about potatoes being grown only with water. It is not grown on land, but only with water. They are in a position to produce vegetables, flowers, and others. So that is a new area of research which goes on to address the issue of climate change in future. Industries can use rainwater use. The rainwater harvesting is common. We understand that. the IoT sensors, blockchain as a technology is increasingly getting used in organizations which require monitoring, leak detection, predictive analysis, and other things, smart water monitoring, nanofiltration, digital twins. So these are all some of those terms and some of those initiatives which we see as a part of innovation, research, improvement in this water efficiency area. Now, consumption analysis becomes very important, as we talked about, with when we come to looking at the efficiency part. So understanding the water patterns helps the organization identify inefficiencies. It could be a seasonal uh, industry like fruit juice industry or a beverage industry where the water patterns may be high in some season, low in the others. So this becomes very important to identify the inefficiencies and areas of improvement. Of course, one important factor to be taken into consideration is the emergency management. The emergency management, when we look at as water related emergency, it essentially means lack of water and availability of water in large quantities but unfit for use. As we see, the flooding which happens, which stops the processes in organizations. It could be a drought where in a water stressed area, the water availability is less, and that becomes a challenge for the organizations. So when we talk of an emergency management, it is but natural that the organization identifies what are those emergencies which it has to overcome and what are the processes which will have to be put in place to overcome them, to reasonably address those emergencies or mitigate those emergencies. That is a requirement of the standard. And supplier management, as we say, the engagement of suppliers or service providers, collaborating with them, the contractors, is crucial for maintaining water efficiency standards, especially in organizations where most of the jobs are being done by contractors, particularly like construction industry and other types of manufacturing industries where the contractor's engagement is at a high level. So water management practices must be inculcated within the organization to see improvements can be done. So to have a look at how things work, the emphasis on internal audit is given. It could be performed by internal agencies or the internal auditors or by a second party that is also considered acceptable as per the standard. And that gives an idea as to what is the state of affairs of the water efficiency management system and performance, and also to look at how do we improve the efficiency within the organization in relation to the water efficiency policy which has been prepared by the organization. And finally, the management review is emphasized with the scope, the recommendations to meet the targets, and also to see what best the organization can do to improve the water efficiency process in addressing non-conformances and continual improvement. So the standard gives a very good annexure, which is a guidance to the document, examples of water efficiency scenarios. It gives for different industries as examples, gives guidance for development of how the organization has to come up with a water balance chart. If a company does not know how to do that, it provides guidance to that. And also examples of business indicators, which I just showed a little while ago. and how these business indicators could be identified and also worked upon for efficiency. So, key aspects, if we see, is quantifies usage, water input output, identifies losses, leaks, unauthorized use, poor metering, other ways, and whatever practices. It analyzes the existing practices, recommends solutions, and the scope can be applied to homes, industries, business, and municipalities. And we understand the benefits, the cost, operational efficiency, sustainability, and conservation, which are the outcomes of this. And there are some terms which are used like water neutral, similar to carbon neutral, balancing of water with withdrawal and replenishment for a net zero impact. So now most of the organizations, as you see that some of the companies or the product they advertise as a water neutral company, like Aquafina, if we see as a brand, they say it's water neutral. ITC also has for some of the products, they are a water neutral company or sometimes water positive. For example, the Chola Hotel in Chennai, they declare themselves as a water positive hotel. That is returning more water to environment than consumed, creating a net benefit. Water negative, of course, we understand, indicates the water stress and usage is excess in such organizations. So finally, let
So
us come.
last
Yeah,
uh, time is up. So last maybe 2 minutes.
this is the last slide. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So when we look at water, there are two theories, economics, which water economics, there are two theories. One is what we call the tragedy of commons. This is the economic theory where individuals acting on their own self-interest depletes the common resource for everyone. The benefits are taking about, but suffers the collective loss. So everybody is interested in their own self-interest. They don't worry about the common interest, and that theory is the tragedy of commons, which is also applied to water economics. And the last one, another theory is when we look at water, water is essential for our lives. But when we look at the price of water to price of diamond, the diamond is highly priced than water, which is a strange, that is a diamond water paradox. More of it, I would recommend you to go through that and understand. It is an interesting theory which has been put by the between the value in use and the value in exchange, which is something very important to look at in the area of water economics. So that is the standard on water efficiency. Maybe for few minutes I've taken a little bit of time more, and if there are any few questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you.
And I
Thank you.
hope it was clear, and I mean, though it was fast, it's a lot of information to be covered. So any questions, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So the first thing, water bankruptcy, I got to know from you from this session. It was great learning. Yeah, and we have one interesting question as well. So I guess at last you also explain it, but I'll read the question and maybe you can reply it with your short response.
Sure.
What should we look for in a water balancing diagram? What does good water balancing look like? So question is asked by Ta.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in a water balancing, we are looking at what are the sources for inputs. And when the input is a groundwater or it is from a municipal water or desalinated water, we know the source, the input. And once it gets into the organization, then it is used for various purposes. Where all it is getting used, it could be used for the process, it could be used for manufacturing, it could be for washing, it could be used for the washrooms, wherever the branches go and how much consumption is there. If we are in a position to know that, And then what is the output, the wastage which comes? If we are in a position to do the balancing part of it, and then internally, whether we require improvement in efficiency, or can we use the wastewater and treat it and put it into a sort of a circular system. So these are all those aspects which are getting looked at. Water balance is nothing but measurement of the input water, the consumption within the boundaries of the organization, within the scope, and also looking at what is the amount of water which is wasted or which comes out from the organization. So once we are in a position to measure this, then we are in a position to know how to manage it, in which areas efficiency could be improved. So what the standard says is, it is not that you have to improve the efficiency throughout the organization. It could be in some areas which may give economic benefits to the organization, and identify those measures which could be done to improve the efficiency part of it.
Got it. So I hope, Ekta, this answers your query. If there is anything, you can unmute and speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more question. Why is separately standard for water management, as already there is ISO 14001 and water is a part of these standards? So why
Absolutely.
there
A very valid question which is there. When we look at it, if we look at those environmental issues which are gaining attention to, whatever the ISO 14001, which is more of an umbrella standard, which can address all these issues. It can be for waste, it can be for energy efficiency, it can be for water efficiency, etc., or even for biodiversity. What is happening is that many of the organizations do not give much attention to these issues, because the focus is on high level environment management. So that is why we see percolation of various standards. We have an energy management, which is 50,001. We have a biodiversity standard coming up. We have the water efficiency standard. Similarly, we have various other standards coming up, issue-based, so that more attention and focus can be given by those organizations for improving the performance levels.
Murli sir, Ekta,
Yes.
again, I'm sorry I lost you in between in the water balancing thing. I had a
Yeah.
connection issue.
Yeah.
I just had a follow-up question that, you know, when companies show us their water balancing diagrams, everything looks perfect. It's like a
Yeah.
ZLD plant. They
Correct.
take something through their ETP, STP, they recycle some of it. But
Yes.
what are we supposed to kind of focus on? What are we supposed to give as guidance? Because almost everybody in a ZLD plant makes it look all hunky dory, whereas in a lot of them, I see the horticulture consumption is very high, and you know there are no efficiencies really.
Absolutely. So here the thing is that whatever is there, number one is that we need to look at the accuracies with which the measurements have been done. Does it take into consideration any emergency measures? Whatever, if something happens, how are they planning to manage it? What are those areas where we are not looking, when we talk about efficiency levels, particularly in water, we are not talking about 20% improvement and all. Even if it is 2%, it is something which is good. It could be due to behavior of people. So the culture will have to be changed within the organization, which may produce considerable amount of efficiency. So all these aspects will have to be looked at, and we are not aiming at 10%, 20% within a short time. It is basically building a culture within the organization and emphasizing the importance of water efficiency in the organization. So it's a long drawn process. It's a very valid question you have asked. And many times it is all made for paper and made for either an audit or demonstrating it or for a disclosure. But internally, what is to be looked at is to see that the organization brings in a culture to see to it that how innovation could assist in improvement of the process. Yeah.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ekta, for asking. And sir, we have one more question.
Yeah.
So maybe Arun, you want to ask it by unmuting yourself, or should I read it? We can take any one question out of this.
Yeah.
Hi, Arun, can you hear me? Okay, so I'll take the second question, sir. So one is regarding how it can be mapped with GRI CDP. So I'll consider
Yeah.
it as a data management
Yeah.
that they have to do. The second question, what he is asking is, does 46,001 sufficiently address physical water risk under climate variability or any tools required?
Yes, yes, yes. It addresses that. It does not, because it has come up in 2019, the version, it does not explicitly talk about the climate change issues like what other ISO standards are speaking. The 2026 version of ISO standards include the issue of climate change, which will have to be, in other words, the organization has to identify whether climate change is significant for them and accordingly address that, be it a quality management system or information security, whatever it is. So that is not explicitly indicated in the 46,001 since it came in 2019. Obviously, it is something which will have to be taken into consideration.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so Arun is saying, so he's having mic issue, so that's why he's
No
not
problem.
able to
Yeah.
how it prevents efficient misuse of water in water intensive system.
Yeah. That is because of leaks, lack of maintenance, or the equipments which are old, and some of those equipments which have been installed over 10 years, 15 years, they are totally becoming inefficient today. That is why smart water monitoring requirements are being emphasized as a part of improvement of efficiency. So it is a study which requires to be undertaken to find out where the issues crop up and accordingly what are the avenues for improvement will have to be explored.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for
Yeah.
clearing all the doubts and explaining
Yeah.
it in simple language. So that was really great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So
Thank
one
you.
last request for all the participants. So if you can share your learnings in the WhatsApp group, so that becomes a motivation for others also. And that would be great if you can just post your learning, maybe just one sentence and the feedback if you can share in the WhatsApp group. That would be really great. And on behalf of all the participants also, thank you so much, Murli sir, for
Thank you.
preparing this and presenting it in such a simple language. So thanks. And for those, this is just an announcement that for 13th, 14th, and 15th February, so we are running one workshop, online workshop on basics of systems thinking. And while listening about this ISO standard. So I thought improving the water situation. So the standards talks about in a systemic lens. That is what I could see. Because they are not just talking about just introducing one standard and just thing is done. No, it's not about reporting. It's about long-term improvement. It's about understanding how different elements are interacting in an organization. So I guess this standard and how Murli sir explained. So this is one of the systemic lens how we see it. So this is a detailed systems thinking workshop that we are running. So this is at discounted price and we have limited seats now. So if you want to do it, please register it at earliest. With this, I thank you, all of you, for your valuable time, and let's connect maybe not next Saturday. We will be in workshop, but maybe next to that. But really appreciate joining you. Yes, Arun ji, I'll share this in WhatsApp group. Okay. So I hope you are in WhatsApp group. So I'll be sharing that. Okay. Or you can connect me directly on WhatsApp. So we can discuss it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great Sunday. Please take care.
Thank you. Good
Thank you,
night.
sir.
Bye bye.